My daughter told me I was embarrassing 3 hours before her wedding. I just smiled and said, "Okay, sweetheart." What she didn't know was that I had 62 million reasons to smile. See, 3 months earlier, I'd won the lottery. Not just any lottery, the biggest jackpot in Ohio history. $62,847,291. I kept the ticket in my wallet, right next to her wedding invitation. But here's the thing about having that kind of money and not telling anyone: you get to see who people really are. You get to watch your own family show their true colors when they think you're just Bob Mitchell, the guy who managed a chain restaurant for 25 years and lives in a one-bedroom apartment. That text message she sent me? "Dad, no. Figure it out yourself. This is my day." Well, Jessica was about to learn what embarrassing really meant. Let me back up and tell you how we got here. March 15th, 2024. That's the day everything changed, though nobody knew it but me. I was working the night shift at Miller's Family Restaurant, same job I'd had for 8 years since the divorce. Steady work, decent people, nothing fancy. I made $42,000 a year, lived in my $847 a month apartment on Maple Street, and drove my 2014 Honda Civic with 130,000 miles on it. Every Tuesday for 12 years, I'd buy my lottery ticket at the Quick Mart on Fifth Avenue. Same numbers every time: 7, 14, 23, 31, 47, 52, with Powerball 18. Those were the ages of my kids when they graduated high school, plus Jessica's birthday. That Wednesday morning, I was having my usual black coffee and checking the numbers on my phone. 7. Got it. 14. Got it. 23. My hands started shaking. 31, 47, 52. All there. Then the Powerball. 18. I stared at that screen for 10 minutes. Checked it on 3 different websites. Called the lottery office twice just to hear them confirm the winning numbers again. 62,847,291. I drove to the lottery office in Columbus that same day. Took the lump sum, 37.4 million after taxes. By Thursday afternoon, my Chase checking account showed a balance that made me dizzy. $37,400,218.36. But I didn't tell anyone. Not Jessica, not my son Michael, not even my sister Patricia, who'd been asking me for years why I kept buying those stupid tickets. See, I wanted to do something special for Jessica's wedding. She'd been planning it since she was 8 years old, had a whole Pinterest board with 1,500 pins. The venue alone was costing her and Brad $28,000. I was going to surprise her with a check for $2 million, enough to pay for the wedding, buy a house, start their life right. But first, I wanted to see something. I wanted to see how my family treated me when they thought I was still just struggling Bob Mitchell. The test started small. In April, I asked Michael if I could borrow his lawnmower because mine broke. He said he was too busy. Asked Jessica if she wanted to grab dinner. Nothing fancy, just Applebee's. She said she couldn't be seen there because she was building her brand on Instagram. These weren't big things, but they added up. Then came June 18th, the day Jessica's wedding invitation arrived. Thick cardstock, gold lettering, probably cost $3 each to print. Mr. Robert Mitchell in fancy script, like I was some distinguished guest instead of the guy who'd worked double shifts to pay for her college textbooks. The wedding was set for September 22nd at Riverside Manor. I looked it up. $8,500 just for the venue rental. The whole thing was going to cost them $43,000. According to Jessica's Instagram stories, where she documented every vendor meeting, every dress fitting, every flower arrangement. $43,000 for one day. And my daughter was stressed about it. I could hear it in her voice when she called me in July. "Dad, this wedding is killing us financially. Brad's parents are helping with the catering, but we're still short." That's when I almost told her. Almost said, "Sweetheart, don't worry about money. Daddy's got this covered." But something held me back. Maybe it was the way she'd been treating me lately. Always rushing off the phone, always too busy for coffee, always making excuses. When's the last time she'd asked how I was doing? When's the last time she'd seemed genuinely happy to hear from me? I decided to wait. Let her have her stress, her financial worry. After all, I'd been stressed about money for the last 8 years, working nights and weekends just to make ends meet. She never seemed concerned about that. But I was still planning the surprise. $2 million in a wedding card. Maybe $3 million. Why not? I could afford it. I had the check printed up at the bank in August. Made it out to Jessica and Brad Hartwell, in the amount of $2 million even. The bank manager, a nice lady named Carol, asked if I was sure about the amount. I just smiled and said, "It's for my daughter's wedding." I kept that check in my safe deposit box, right next to copies of my lottery, ticket, and bank statements. Everything was ready. Then came September 19th, 3 days before the wedding. That's when Jessica called me with a request that would change everything. "Dad," she said, and I could hear the fake sweetness in her voice, the tone she used when she wanted something. "I need a tiny favor." "What kind of favor, sweetheart?" I asked, though something in her tone already had me on edge. "Well, you know how important Saturday is to me. It's literally the most important day of my life, and I want everything to be perfect." I waited. With Jessica, there was always a buildup. "The thing is, Dad, I've been looking at the photos from Brad's cousin's wedding last month, and honestly, some of the family members looked kind of shabby, and it really brought down the whole aesthetic of their pictures." Aesthetic. That was a word Jessica had started using a lot lately. Everything had to fit her aesthetic. "I'm not following, honey." "Well, I was wondering if you could maybe invest in a new suit for Saturday. Something that would photograph well. I found this amazing place, Giovanni's Menswear downtown, and they have these gorgeous suits that would be perfect for you. The salesman said for around $800, we could get you something that would really complement the wedding colors." $800. That was almost my entire monthly rent. "Jessica, that's a lot of money for me right now. You know I've been trying to save up to get you and Brad a nice wedding gift." "Dad, please. This is so important to me. And honestly, the suit you wore to Cousin Rachel's wedding last year was, well, it was pretty dated. I just want you to look your best. For me." I looked down at my clothes. The same khakis and polo shirt I wore most days. The same outfit I'd worn to work at the restaurant for years. Clean, pressed, but nothing fancy. "How about this?" I said. "I can probably swing 500. Maybe I could find something nice for 500. The pause that followed lasted just long enough to make my chest tight. "Dad, honestly, 500 isn't going to cut it. You'd just end up with something cheap looking, and that's not going to help. Look, I know money is tight for you, but this is my wedding. This is literally a once-in-a-lifetime event. Can't you just figure it out?" Figure it out. Like I was asking her to solve some impossible puzzle instead of help her father look decent at her wedding. "Jessica, 500 is a lot of money for me. You know I'm living paycheck to paycheck here." "Dad, come on. You managed restaurants for 25 years. You're telling me you can't come up with $300 more? What about a credit card? What about asking Aunt Patricia? What about getting a part-time job? A part-time job on top of my full-time night shifts at 55 years old, so I could buy an $800 suit to match her aesthetic. "Sweetheart, I just want to look nice for your special day. I thought maybe you and Brad could help me out a little, just this once." Another pause, then her voice changed. Got harder. "Dad, I can't keep bailing you out. I've got my own financial stress right now, and this wedding is costing us $43,000. Brad's parents are helping, my friends have all contributed to our registry, and I'm literally selling my old jewelry to make ends meet. I cannot take on your expenses, too. I'm not asking you to bail me out. I'm asking for help with one outfit so I can look appropriate at your wedding. And I'm telling you that I can't enable this anymore. You're 55 years old. You should be able to afford your own clothes by now. The fact that you're calling me 3 days before my wedding to ask for money is honestly embarrassing." There it was, the word that would stick with me, embarrassing. I'm embarrassing? "Dad, yes, this is embarrassing. I'm getting married in 3 days. I've got a million things to handle, and instead of supporting me and being excited for me, you're creating more stress by asking me to pay for your clothes. It's not fair." I sat there in my little apartment, looking at my reflection in the black TV screen. Same face I'd had my whole life. Same guy who'd worked double shifts when she needed money for college. Same guy who'd given up his retirement savings to help her with her first apartment deposit. Same guy who'd spent every Christmas and birthday for the last 28 years making sure she had everything she wanted. "You know what, Jessica? You're right. I'll figure it out myself." "Thank you. I knew you'd understand. And Dad, please just try to look nice on Saturday. This day means everything to me. She hung up without saying she loved me. She always used to end our calls with "Love you, Dad." But not this time. I sat there staring at my phone for about 10 minutes. Then I opened my banking app and looked at that number again. $37,400,218.36. I could buy Giovanni's entire store. I could buy the building Giovanni's was in. I could probably buy a dozen $800 suits and not even notice the money was gone. Instead, I walked to my closet and pulled out the same navy blue suit I'd worn to Cousin Rachel's wedding. The one Jessica called dated. I'd bought it at J.C. Penney 6 years ago for $89. It still fit fine. It was clean. It would have to do. But something had changed in that phone call. Something important. The check in my safe deposit box? The one for $2 million? I was starting to think Jessica might not deserve it after all. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying Jessica's words in my head. Embarrassing. Enable this anymore. Figure it out yourself. 28 years of being her father, and this is what it came down to. A $500 request. Not even a gift. Just help looking decent at her wedding. And I was suddenly a burden. An embarrassment. I got up around 2 in the morning and made myself some coffee. Sat at my little kitchen table with my laptop and started doing what I always do when I need to think. I made a list. First, I pulled up my bank statements from the last 5 years. Every birthday, every Christmas, every emergency Jessica had called me about. The numbers were pretty clear. 2019. Christmas gift, $400. Her birthday, $300. Emergency car repair, $800. Total, $1,500. 2020, Christmas, $500. Birthday, $400. First apartment deposit, $1,200. Wedding shower gift for her friend, $150. Total, $2,250. 2021, Christmas, $600. Birthday, $500. Brad's birthday, which she insisted I needed to acknowledge, $100. Her emergency dental work, $400. Total, $1,600. 2022, Christmas, $700. Birthday, $600. Their engagement party, $300. Help with Brad's student loan payment when he was between jobs, $500. Total, $2,100. 2023, Christmas, $800. Birthday, $700. Engagement ring insurance payment, $200. Her bridal shower hosting costs, $400. Total, $2,100. 8 years of gifts and help, $8,350 total, and that didn't count all the dinners I'd paid for, the gas money when she was in college, the phone bill I covered until she was 25. But when I needed $500 to look appropriate at her wedding, I can't enable this anymore. I opened another browser tab and looked up Giovanni's menswear. Their website showed suits starting at $400 and going up to $2,000. I could afford every suit in their store and still have enough left over to buy the store itself. But that wasn't the point anymore. I walked to my bedroom and opened my safe. Inside was the lottery ticket, the bank statements, and that check for $2 million. I pulled out the check and stared at it. Pay to the order of Jessica and Brad Hartwell. Amount, $2 million. Memo, for my daughter's new beginning. Love, Dad. I'd been so excited when I had this printed. Imagined the look on her face when she opened the card. Imagined her crying happy tears, maybe finally saying she was proud of me. Maybe finally treating me like I mattered. But sitting there at 3 in the morning, something became crystal clear. If I gave her this money now, after the way she'd just treated me, what would I be teaching her? That she could dismiss me, insult me, call me embarrassing, and still get rewarded? That there were no consequences for treating people badly just because they love you? My grandfather used to say, "Bobby, you teach people how to treat you." I'd been teaching Jessica that it was okay to treat me like garbage because I'd always be there with my wallet open anyway. I made a decision right there at my kitchen table. I was still going to her wedding. I was still going to wear my $89 JCPenney suit. I was still going to be the father of the bride, give my speech, dance with my daughter. But I was also going to teach her a lesson she'd never forget. I pulled out a blank check from my checkbook, the regular checkbook, not the special one the bank gave me for large amounts. In careful handwriting, I wrote, "Pay to the order of Jessica and Brad Hartwell. Amount, $200. Memo, figure it out yourselves. $200. About what I would have spent on a regular wedding gift back when I made $42,000 a year, back when I was just embarrassing old Bob. I folded the $2 million check in half and put it back in the safe. This new check went into my jacket pocket. 3 days until the wedding. 3 days for Jessica to maybe call and apologize. Maybe realize she'd been cruel to her father who just wanted to look nice for her special day. My phone never rang. Saturday morning arrived with perfect weather. 72 degrees, sunny skies, light breeze. Perfect for an outdoor ceremony at Riverside Manor. Perfect for what was about to happen. I arrived at Riverside Manor at 3:15, 45 minutes before the ceremony. The parking lot was already half full with cars that cost more than I used to make in a year. BMW sedans, Mercedes SUVs, a couple of Teslas. I parked my Honda Civic between a Lexus and an Audi and tried not to think about how it looked. The venue was beautiful, I'll give Jessica that. White columns, perfectly manicured gardens, a stone terrace overlooking the river. She'd chosen well. Expensive, but well. I walked toward the main entrance wearing my navy JCPenney suit, my 6-year-old black dress shoes that I'd polished that morning, and a $15 tie I'd bought at Target. Clean, pressed, appropriate. Maybe not $800 appropriate, but appropriate. The first person I saw was Jessica's maid of honor, Brittany, directing people toward the guest book table. She was wearing a dusty rose dress that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. "Oh, hi, Mr. Mitchell," she said with that bright, fake smile young people use when they're being polite to adults they don't really respect. "You look nice. Nice. The way you'd compliment a child who drew you a crayon picture." "Thank you, Brittany. You look lovely. Is Jessica around?" "Oh, she's getting ready in the bridal suite upstairs. Family photos start in about 20 minutes on the terrace." I nodded and walked inside. The main hall was decorated with white roses and eucalyptus, with fairy lights strung everywhere. Pretty. Probably cost $3,000 just for the flowers. That's when I heard my name. "Bob!" "There you are." It was my sister Patricia, walking toward me in a navy dress and pearls. She looked me up and down with an expression I couldn't quite read. "You look fine, Bobby." "Don't let anyone tell you different." "What do you mean?" She lowered her voice. "Jessica's been anxious about the family photos. Something about everyone looking cohesive for the photographer. She's been checking on all the outfits. Before I could ask what that meant, I heard heels clicking across the marble floor behind me. "Dad!" I turned around, and there was Jessica, in her getting-ready robe, her hair half done, makeup perfect except for the stress lines around her eyes. She looked beautiful. She also looked panicked. "Dad, we need to talk. Privately." She grabbed my arm and led me toward a small side room off the main hall. Once we were alone, she closed the door and turned to face me. "Okay, so I know we talked about the suit situation, and I know you said you'd figure it out, but..." She gestured at my outfit. "This is what you figured out?" "It's a nice suit, Jessica. It's clean, it fits, it's appropriate for a wedding." "Dad, no, it's really not. The photographer is charging us $3,200, and every single photo from today is going to be displayed in our house for the rest of our lives. Brad's family all look incredible. His father is wearing an Armani suit. His brothers both went to Men's Warehouse and spent at least $400 each. Even his teenage nephew looks more put together than..." She stopped herself. "Then what?" "Dad, I'm sorry, but you look like you're dressed for a job interview at a mid-level insurance company in 1998. There it was again. The disrespect wrapped up in honest concern. The way she could make me feel small while pretending she was trying to help. "This is the suit I wore to your college graduation. You said I looked handsome then. That was 6 years ago, Dad. And it was college graduation, not my wedding. This is different. This is..." She ran her hands through her hair, messing up what the stylist had done. "This is going to be in our photo albums forever. These pictures are going to be on our mantle, on social media, in frames all over our house. When we have kids, these are the photos they're going to see of their grandfather." "And you don't want them to see their grandfather looking like a regular person?" "I want them to see their grandfather looking like he made an effort, like he cared enough about his daughter's wedding to dress appropriately." She was getting louder. Through the thin door, I could hear conversations in the main hall going quiet. Jessica, I did make an effort. I bought this suit specifically for special occasions. I had it cleaned and pressed yesterday. I bought a new tie. A $15 tie from Target, Dad. I can tell because Brittany has the same one. I looked down at my tie, navy blue with small silver dots. Simple, clean, classic. There's nothing wrong with Target. There's nothing wrong with Target for everyday clothes. But this is my wedding. This is the most important day of my life. And you're dressed like you're going to church on a random Sunday. She was almost yelling now. The people in the main hall had definitely heard. What do you want me to do, Jessica? The wedding starts in 30 minutes. Should I leave? Should I go home and change into clothes I don't own? She looked at me for a long moment. I could see her weighing her options. Her father looking shabby in all the photos, or her father not being in the photos at all. No, she said finally. You can't leave. You're walking me down the aisle, but... She took a deep breath. We're going to have to be strategic about the photo arrangements. Strategic. Like I was a problem to be managed rather than her father. What does that mean? It means we'll put you on the end of the family photos, so if we need to crop anything later, we can. And for the formal portraits, maybe you could stand in the back? Stand in the back, at my own daughter's wedding. Sure, sweetheart. Whatever you need. That's when I made my final decision about the speech I was going to give. The ceremony was beautiful. I'll give Jessica that. She looked stunning in her $4,800 Vera Wang dress, walking down the aisle to a string quartet that probably cost more than most people's cars. The whole thing was picture perfect. I walked her down that aisle like I was supposed to, handed her off to Brad, took my seat in the front row. During the vows, I caught her eye a few times and smiled. She smiled back, and for a moment, she was just my little girl again. The photographer, a guy named Mike who looked about 30 and carried equipment worth more than my annual salary, moved around us like we were celebrities. He took probably 300 photos during the ceremony, alone. After the I-do's and the kiss, we moved to cocktail hour on the terrace. This is where things got uncomfortable. I was standing by the bar, nursing a beer and trying to make small talk with Brad's uncle from Cleveland, when I overheard a conversation that made my blood run cold. Brad was talking to his groomsmen near the appetizer table. His voice carried more than he probably realized. I just hope the photos turn out okay, he was saying. Some of the family members are a little underdressed for this kind of venue. His best man, a guy named Connor who worked in finance, glanced over at me and lowered his voice. Not low enough. Is that Jessica's dad? In the J.C. Penney suit? Yeah, she's been stressed about it all week. She tried to get him to upgrade his outfit, but apparently he couldn't afford anything better. Couldn't afford it? What does he do? He managed some chain restaurant for like 20 years, lives in a one-bedroom apartment, drives an old Honda. Jessica says he's always asking for money. Always asking for money. That's what my daughter had told her fiancé about me. That I was always asking for money. Connor shook his head. That's tough, man. Having family who can't keep up with your lifestyle. Tell me about it. My dad said we should have just eloped. Avoid all the family drama. I finished my beer and walked away before I heard anything else. But the damage was done. 20 minutes later, Jessica found me by the guest book table. Dad, we need to talk about the reception seating. What about it? Well, the photographer wants to get some candid shots during dinner, and the head table is going to be really prominently featured in all the photos. And she was using her careful voice again, the one she used when she was about to say something hurtful but wanted to sound reasonable. Okay. So we were thinking maybe you'd be more comfortable at table 6? With Aunt Patricia and some of the family friends? It's a great table, right by the dance floor, and you'll have more people to talk to. Table 6, not the head table with the wedding party and immediate family. Table 6 with the relatives who didn't quite make the cut. Jessica, I'm your father. Don't fathers usually sit at the head table? Usually, yes, but this is a little different. The head table is really small, and we need room for the wedding party. Plus, Brad's parents are paying for most of the reception, so they're sitting there too. It's just logistics. Logistics. Like I was a logistics problem. Plus, she continued, the head table is going to be photographed constantly. Every toast, every speech, every candid moment. And honestly, Dad, with your outfit... She trailed off. With my outfit, what? With your outfit, you might feel more comfortable somewhere less visible. Less visible. My own daughter wanted me to be less visible at her wedding. That's when Brad appeared beside her, putting his hand on her shoulder in a gesture that was supposed to look supportive, but felt possessive. "Hey, Mr. Mitchell, great ceremony, right?" "Beautiful," I said. "Listen, we were just talking about the seating arrangements. I hope you don't mind the change. It's just that the head table is pretty cramped, and honestly, with the photographer focusing on that area so much, maybe you'd be more relaxed at table 6? More relaxed. Because obviously I'd be uncomfortable sitting with the important people. "Sure," I said. "Whatever works." Jessica looked relieved. "Thanks for understanding, Dad." "You're the best." "No," I thought. "I'm really not. But you're about to find out exactly how not the best I can be." Dinner was served at 6:30. I sat at table 6 with Aunt Patricia, Jessica's former piano teacher, Mrs. Henderson, and 3 couples I'd never met who turned out to be Brad's family friends. Nice people, but clearly wondering why the father of the bride wasn't sitting with the wedding party. The head table was positioned on a raised platform about 20 feet away. I had a perfect view of my daughter laughing with her bridesmaids, Brad's parents telling stories to the groomsmen, and the constant flash of cameras capturing every moment. Mrs. Henderson leaned over during the salad course. "Bobby, shouldn't you be sitting up there with Jessica?" "They needed the space for Brad's family," I said. "It's fine." But Aunt Patricia wasn't buying it. She'd been watching the head table dynamics all evening, and I could see the anger building in her eyes. "This is ridiculous," she whispered. "You're her father. You should be sitting next to her, not hidden away over here like some distant cousin. Keep your voice down, Pat." "No, I will not keep my voice down. I've watched you sacrifice everything for that girl for 28 years, and this is how she treats you? At her own wedding?" One of Brad's family friends, a woman named Carol, was listening to our conversation with obvious interest. Nothing travels faster at a wedding than family drama. That's when I noticed the phones coming out. First it was Brittany, the maid of honor, taking a selfie at the head table. Then Brad's sister started recording Jessica cutting her salmon. Then the bridesmaids were posing for group shots, making sure to capture the elegant head table setup behind them. But here's what I noticed. Every single photo carefully excluded table 6. Every angle was chosen to show the beautiful wedding party, the happy couple, the distinguished guests at the head table. None of them showed the father of the bride sitting in the background with the secondary relatives. I pulled out my own phone and opened Instagram. Jessica's wedding hashtag, # Jessica and Brad Forever, was already trending with 47 posts from various guests. I scrolled through them, photo after photo of the beautiful ceremony, the elegant reception, the stunning bride and handsome groom. The head table looked like something out of a magazine. Brad's father in his Armani suit, his mother in what was probably a $2,000 dress, the wedding party in their perfectly coordinated outfits. One post from Jessica's college friend Madison caught my attention. "When your bestie has the most gorgeous wedding ever. Every detail perfect. Hashtag wedding goals at Jessica and Brad Forever." The photo showed the head table during toasts. You could see Jessica glowing in her reception dress, Brad looking proud, his parents looking like they belonged in a country club catalog. In the background, barely visible, was table 6. You could just make out my navy suit jacket, but my face was completely blocked by a centerpiece. Another post from Brad's cousin. "Some families just know how to do weddings right. Class all the way. Jessica and Brad Forever class." There was that word again. I kept scrolling. Post after post, showing the beautiful wedding, the perfect family, the elegant reception, and in every single one, I was either completely absent or so far in the background I might as well have not been there. This was intentional. This wasn't just about seating arrangements or photo logistics. This was about erasing me from my daughter's wedding story because I didn't fit the image she wanted to project. Around 7:15 during the main course, I excused myself to use the restroom. On my way back, I walked past a group of Jessica's work friends who were standing near the bar. "Just so sad when family can't afford to dress appropriately for these kinds of events," one of them was saying. "I know, right? Like it's her wedding. Couldn't he have at least tried?" Jessica told me she offered to help him get something nicer, but he refused. Too proud, I guess. She offered to help me? That's what she told people? That she offered to help and I refused? I stopped walking and turned toward them. Excuse me, ladies. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I couldn't help overhearing. Are you talking about me? They looked mortified. The one who'd been doing most of the talking, a blonde woman in her 20s, turned bright red. Oh, Mr. Mitchell, we weren't. You were talking about how I can't afford to dress appropriately and how Jessica offered to help, but I was too proud to accept. The silence stretched out for about 10 seconds. Finally, the blonde woman found her voice. We're so sorry. We didn't mean anything by it. It's just, Jessica mentioned that she'd tried to help with your outfit, but what? But you said you'd handle it yourself. Handle it myself. Figure it out myself. The story was getting better with each telling. Ladies, I said, smiling calmly, you might want to hold off on posting any more photos tonight. I have a feeling this wedding is about to get very interesting. I walked back to table 6 with my head spinning. Not from anger. I was past anger now. But from clarity. For the first time in months, everything made perfect sense. Jessica hadn't just rejected my request for help with a suit. She'd created an entire narrative about it. A story where she was the generous daughter trying to help her stubborn, proud father who was too foolish to accept assistance. A story where I was the problem, the embarrassment, the family member who just couldn't get his act together. And everyone believed it. Her friends, her co-workers, probably half the wedding guests. Poor Jessica, dealing with her difficult father who shows up to her elegant wedding looking like he raided a thrift store. I sat back down next to Aunt Patricia, who was picking at her chicken marsala and glaring at the head table. You okay, Bobby? You look like you've seen a ghost. Something like that. I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app. $37,400,218.36. The number hadn't changed, but everything else had. I started doing math in my head. 28 years of fatherhood. Let's see what that looked like in dollars and cents. College tuition at Ohio State. $47,000 over 4 years. I'd paid $32,000 of that myself, working overtime shifts and selling my fishing boat to cover the gap. Her first car, a used Honda Accord for $8,500 when she turned 17. I'd saved for 2 years to buy that car. Apartment deposits, first and last month's rent, utilities set up when she moved to Columbus after graduation, $3,200. Emergency fund when she was between jobs for 4 months, $2,000 in loans that were never repaid. Engagement party costs when she decided she had to host it because Brad's family was too conservative, $1,500. Wedding shower hosting when she volunteered me to pay for the venue rental, $800. Christmas and birthday gifts averaging $400 each twice a year for 28 years, $22,400. I could keep going, but the pattern was clear. Rough estimate, over the last decade alone, I'd given Jessica somewhere around $70,000 in gifts, loans, and help that was never repaid. $70,000 from a man making $42,000 a year. But when I asked for $500 to look appropriate at her wedding, not even a gift, just help. I was told to figure it out myself. The irony was beautiful, actually. Jessica was worried about me embarrassing her family. She was worried about photos that would hang on their walls for years to come. She was worried about what people would think. She had no idea how embarrassed she was about to be. I reached into my jacket pocket and felt the 2 pieces of paper I'd brought with me. The first was the check for $200, my new wedding gift amount. The second was something I'd printed that morning, a copy of my lottery ticket, with the winning numbers highlighted in yellow marker. 7, 14, 23, 31, 47, 52 Powerball 18, the same numbers I'd played every week for 12 years, the same numbers I'd had in my wallet on March 15th when they called out the winning combination on the evening news. I looked around the reception hall. 147 guests, all dressed in their finest clothes, all here to celebrate Jessica and Brad's new beginning, all of them about to witness something they'd never forget. The DJ was finishing up the dinner music and setting up for toasts. I could see Jessica at the head table checking her phone, probably looking at all those Instagram posts about her perfect wedding. In about 10 minutes, the best man would give his speech. Then the maid of honor. Then Brad's father would say a few words about welcoming Jessica to their family. And then it would be my turn, father of the bride, the moment when everyone would look at the man in the cheap suit and politely applaud whatever sentimental words he had to share about his daughter. I pulled out my phone one more time and took a screenshot of my bank account balance. $37,400,218.36. Then I opened my notes app and typed out the key points I wanted to cover in my speech. It was going to be different from what Jessica was expecting. Very different, but it was going to be honest. And after 28 years of giving and giving and giving, honesty was exactly what this family needed. The DJ tapped his microphone twice. "Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for our wedding toasts." Showtime, the best man went first. Connor, Brad's friend from college, told a story about how Brad had called him after his first date with Jessica, saying he'd met the one. Sweet story. Got some laughs. 3 minutes of perfectly safe wedding toast material. Then came Brittany, the maid of honor. She talked about Jessica's Pinterest wedding board from college, how she'd been planning this day for years, how she deserved every beautiful moment. She held up her champagne glass and said, "To Jessica and Brad, may your love story be everything you've dreamed of." Everyone applauded. Jessica wiped away a tear. Brad's father stood up next, Richard Hartwell, wearing that Armani suit, looking every inch the successful businessman he was. He welcomed Jessica to their family, talked about how proud they were to have her as a daughter-in-law, mentioned something about the importance of hard work and building a solid foundation for marriage. More applause, more champagne sipping. Everyone was feeling good. Then the DJ looked toward table 6. "And now we'd like to invite the father of the bride, Robert Mitchell, to say a few words." This was it. I stood up slowly, straightened my $15 tie, and walked toward the microphone. 147 pairs of eyes followed me across the room. I could hear the click of phone cameras starting to record. At the head table, Jessica was beaming. This was the moment she'd been dreading and anticipating in equal measure. Her shabby father, about to give some embarrassing speech about how proud he was, how beautiful she looked, how much he loved her. I reached the microphone and looked out at all those faces. Expensive dresses, perfect makeup, jewelry that cost more than most people's cars. This was Jessica's crowd, her people, the life she'd built for herself. "Thank you," I said, and my voice carried clearly through the sound system. "Thank you all for being here tonight to celebrate Jessica and Brad." Polite applause. Jessica was still smiling, but I could see a tiny bit of tension around her eyes. She was worried about what I might say, how I might embarrass her. You know, being a father is interesting. You spend your whole life trying to give your children everything they need. You work extra shifts so they can have nice clothes for school. You skip meals so they can eat at McDonald's with their friends. You drive a 10-year-old car so you can buy them a reliable one when they turn 16. Nods around the room. Other parents relating to the sacrifices. You do all of this because you love them, because you want them to have opportunities you didn't have, because you want them to be happy. Jessica was nodding along, still smiling. This was exactly the kind of sentimental father speech she'd expected. But sometimes, I continued, you realize that all that giving has taught them something you never meant to teach. Sometimes you realize that they've learned to expect it, that they've learned to take it for granted. The smiling was starting to fade, not just from Jessica, but from several people in the audience. This wasn't going where they expected. 3 days ago, my daughter called me with a request. She wanted me to buy an $800 suit for today. When I said I could probably manage $500, she told me that wasn't good enough. When I asked if she could help me with the difference, just this once for her wedding, she told me I was embarrassing, that I needed to figure it out myself. The room was getting very quiet. I could see people glancing at each other, uncertain about where this was headed. Now, I want to be clear about something. Jessica was absolutely right. I should be able to afford my own clothes. A 55-year-old man shouldn't have to ask his daughter for help buying a suit. Jessica looked confused. Was I agreeing with her? Was this actually going to be okay? "The thing is," I said, reaching into my jacket pocket, "I can afford my own clothes. I can afford a lot of things." I pulled out the lottery ticket and held it up so everyone could see. 3 months ago, I won the lottery. Not just any lottery. The biggest jackpot in Ohio history. The room went completely silent. You could have heard a pin drop. $62,847,291. I let that number hang in the air for a moment. Jessica's mouth was literally hanging open. I took the lump sum. After taxes, that's $37.4 million sitting in my bank account right now. I pulled out my phone and held up the screenshot of my banking app. The numbers were big enough for the front tables to see clearly. $37,400,218.36, to be exact. The gasps started then, first from the people who could see my phone screen, then spreading throughout the room as they whispered to their neighbors. Now you might be wondering why I didn't tell anyone about this. Why I kept working at the restaurant, kept living in my little apartment, kept driving my old Honda. I looked directly at Jessica. Her face had gone completely white. I kept it secret because I wanted to see something. I wanted to see how my family would treat me when they thought I was still just broke old Bob. And you know what I learned? The room was so quiet, I could hear the air conditioning humming. I learned that when I asked my daughter for help, just once, just $500 to look decent at her wedding, I was told I was embarrassing. I was told to figure it out myself. I was told that helping me would be enabling my poor choices. Jessica was shaking her head slightly, like she was trying to wake up from a bad dream. So I figured it out myself. I wore this $89 suit from JCPenney, the same suit I've worn to every important event for the last 6 years. And you know what? It's a perfectly fine suit. I paused and looked around the room. Every single person was staring at me with their mouths open. I came here tonight planning to give Jessica and Brad a wedding gift. I had a check ready for $2 million. $2 million to start their new life together. Jessica made a small sound. Not quite a gasp, not quite a sob. But here's the thing about respect. You can't buy it. You can't demand it. You can only earn it. And over the last few months, I've learned that I haven't earned my daughter's respect. I've only earned her expectation that I'll always be there with my wallet open, no matter how she treats me. I reached into my other pocket and pulled out the $200 check. So, instead of $2 million, Jessica and Brad, here's your wedding gift. I held up the check so everyone could see the amount. $200, about the same energy you gave me when I asked for help. Jessica stood up from the head table. Dad, please. I'm not finished, sweetheart. The word sweetheart came out harder than I'd intended. Jessica sat back down. I want everyone here to understand something. This isn't about money. This is about how we treat the people who love us. This is about understanding that kindness and respect aren't things you can take for granted, even from family. I looked around the room one more time. 147 witnesses to this moment. Jessica, you're a beautiful bride. You've planned a lovely wedding. You've built a nice life for yourself, but you've forgotten something important along the way. I set the microphone back on its stand and placed the $200 check next to it. You've forgotten how to treat your father with basic human dignity. Maybe this will help you remember. I walked back towards the table 6, but I didn't sit down. Instead, I kept walking, straight toward the exit. Behind me, the room erupted. I made it to my Honda Civic before the first person caught up with me. It was Aunt Patricia, moving faster than I'd seen her move in years. Bobby! Bobby, wait! I stopped with my hand on the car door. Behind her, I could see people streaming out of the reception hall. Some were on their phones, probably calling relatives who weren't at the wedding. Others were just standing in clusters, talking in animated whispers. Patricia was breathing hard. That was the most magnificent thing I've ever seen. Through the venue's windows, I could see chaos inside. Jessica was crying, not happy wedding tears, but the kind of sobbing that ruins makeup. Brad was standing next to her, looking shell-shocked. His parents were huddled together, probably trying to figure out how to salvage their son's wedding reception. The photographer, Mike, was still taking pictures. This was the story of the night now. This was what people would remember about Jessica and Brad's wedding. She deserved it, Bobby, Patricia said. I've watched her treat you like garbage for years, and you finally stood up for yourself. My phone was already buzzing with notifications. Text messages, missed calls, voicemails. Word travels fast in families, but social media makes it travel faster. Someone had definitely recorded my speech. I should go, I said. Where? Good question. Back to my $847 apartment? Back to my old life. Except now, everyone knew I had $37 million in the bank. Everything was going to be different now. Jessica would call eventually, but maybe tonight, maybe tomorrow, maybe next week. She'd apologize, probably. She'd cry and say she didn't mean it, that she was just stressed about the wedding, that she loved me. But the check would stay at $200. I got in my car and drove home through the quiet streets of Oakville. At the first red light, I pulled out my phone and looked at my bank account one more time. The number was the same, $37,400,218.36. Tomorrow, I'd start figuring out what to do with it. Tonight, I was just going to go home and make myself a cup of coffee. For the first time in months, Jessica finally understood what embarrassing really meant, and I finally understood what self-respect